Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia, and welcome back. So, starting more scenery on this one. Now, in the last video, I noted I was going to start painting the tracks. I got off onto something different. We'll kind of start up over here. I had talked in another video or so ago that I had a couple of the twist trees that really didn't look good, so I took the tops of them off. The trunks look pretty good as fallen logs in the forest, so I'm going to leave those there. That guy's still looking, still watching the color change on the bridge a little bit, but I think this is going to be pretty much the final color. If it darkens any more, I guess I'd be surprised. It's been about 24 hours now. It's a nice soft gray, so I'm happy with that. Came back in, added a little bit more right in here. Not too much. One little super tree stick right there, dried piece of it. Added a little bit more ground cover in this area here. A little stick there. I got to be able to get my hands in and around just in case I have an issue back there. I can reach in pretty far from the other direction, but didn't want to put in too much over here. So I've been putting in ground cover in this area. So a lot of odds and ends, more of the sort of chopped up furnace filter material. Planted a few super trees right in here. A little wash coming down. I think that's looking pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I will transition and I will go to painting the track and then working on that. But this is looking pretty good. I'm having a good time on this particular layout. So anyway, let's see what else I can get done today. All right, rails and ties are painted now into the portal a little ways, and then across the top of this up to the seam. So I use the same palette of colors that I did earlier. You can see my three blobs there. The sort of a creamy brown, a dark brown, and then a gray. And then the spot in between is where I would just load the brush ever so slightly. I just cleaned, so I'm not going to dip it, but corner in there, little swipe of there, just tap it. That way I get a variety of hues. No two ties are exactly the same. There are shades of gray, shades of brown, sort of a reddish kind of look in some of it, all kinds of different colors. So that's turned out pretty well. The rails are still actually a little wet and probably didn't get paint everywhere, but you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to get that close to look at it. And by the time I get the dirt in, you're not going to notice it anyway, unless you're right up to it looking. So that's the next step, is I'm going to get some more soil sifted to put in my dirt ballast. All right, well, I've got dirt spread. Now what I'm going to do is come in and just lightly brush and use my finger and just kind of smooth it out. I'll use my finger actually in between the tracks and just kind of move back and forth, use the brush a little bit to kind of push and then push off the ties. And then I'm going to come back in with isopropyl alcohol and spray it down before I glue it with dilute white glue. All right, tracks have been brushed and I've used my finger on the middle there to kind of press down the dirt. Next step will be to soak it up good with isopropyl alcohol and then add dilute white glue. Isopropyl alcohol works great, in particular on this, because it will make it look slightly dampish. And then it will also clean off the tracks and the ties a little bit. So, and I soak it down really good, because that way the glue is going to flow. It's also going to kill some of the dust look on the ties. I will come back in after I do this step and then clean the ties, or not the ties, but clean the rails really well. The isopropyl alcohol actually sort of leaves a film on it. So next step, just add dilute white glue. I'll do a drop in between each of the ties and then run drops and streams along the outside. And then that's it, just let it dry. All right, glue is in place. It is flowing nicely. I will let it dry and then see how it looks. Now clean it off after that too. Now I will go and do that little bit over there. It's probably all I'm going to finish up here on this Sunday night. Unless I come in and do more ground cover. I don't know. We'll see. It's still kind of early. Well, I've got the ground cover put in on that track as well, and everything is starting to dry. I'm needing some more trees. I got some areas to put some in. So what I think I'm going to do next is I'm going to spend part of this week making trees. So these are some trunks of trees that I made last spring. These will be furnace filter trees. In fact, I've got a couple of them here too that are almost 14 inches long. So I am going to set up here Monday and start making some furnace filter trees. And also, probably still do more scenery. Put in some more ground cover. But anyway, no matter what, I've got to do some more because I need to do some clipping so that I get more stuff for the ground cover anyway. So that's going to be a project in this video as well. So I'm getting ready to make furnace filter trees. This is the product that I use. I get this at like Home Depot, Lowe's, I think carries it as well. You know, it's 1 inch thick. The color is already a nice shade of green, so I don't have to paint it too much to get it to be usable. But I'm going to start and cut this into roughly a couple of 3-inch strips that are going to run across, and then I will cut them into different size squares and cubes, and then get ready for the next step, which will be to tear them and then shape them and make trees out of these. So I'll show you different steps along the way. So from one 3-inch strip off of that furnace filter material, I've got this. So generally out of each piece, like that square piece right there in the center of the frame, I can pull about 3 other pieces from it. You know, all different shapes come off of it and different sizes. So the next thing is I'm going to take my little pair of scissors here and I'm going to just sort of round them. I will collect all of the pieces that come off because I'm going to use those for scenery other places. So I'll get a bag and I'll just kind of trim, get a quasi-round shape. Then after I get that done, I'll sort them into piles so that I can start building trees. It's a real straightforward process. It's actually fairly quick. Yeah, right there is enough for maybe 4, maybe 5 furnace filter trees. So everything is cut into a sort of roundish shape. Once I get the trees assembled, I will put on Woodland Scenic's ground foam on to give it its base color. Then I will come back in and cut the bejeebies out of them some more. Then I'll come back in and use the 2mm static grass. But I've got my bag starting to accumulate scenic materials. So I'm ready to go on to the next step, and that's to start gluing these up and start making some trees. Late Monday night, and I am wrapping it up. Been out in the garage for about an hour, and I'm going back in. But I got 4 trees out of that batch of furnace filter material. And as you notice, there's still a bunch of smaller pieces. I'll use those on the next builds. I'll just make more large pieces. So these 4 trees are ready for the next step, which tomorrow will be painting. Then I will spray them with hairspray, and I will give them a good coating of Woodland Scenic's ground foam. After that, I will cut the bejeebies out of them to get shapes that I want. And then I will come back in with more hairspray and then the 2mm static grass. And then these should look more like those once I'm all done with the process. This goes quick. You know, I've mentioned it in another video long ago that, boy, try your hand at scratch building. If you haven't tried, these are super simple to make. They are economical, and you can get them in any size that you want because you're the one making them. You're not limited to 8, maybe 10 inches that you can buy at a commercial. I've got trees on this layout that are up to 14 inches tall. So, you know what? Go ahead and jump in and make some trees. So next one will be tomorrow. I'll have these painted. I'll show you that and then the next steps, and then I'll actually probably plant these tomorrow is my guess, and then start making some more. Here is a total of 8 trees that I built. I added 4 more to the ones that I did a couple of days ago. It's now Wednesday evening. And weather's decent, so I'm coming out and I'm going to spray paint these using the camo brown. Be pretty easy. I won't be able to film it while I'm doing it because I'm holding things, but got a glove on my hand to protect, and then I'm just going to spray paint everything. You'll see the end result once I finish up here. Should look pretty good, and then I can go on to the next steps. All right, these are painted. You can still see hints of green in them, which is fine because the furnace filter material will act as the branches, which everything else will be built off of. So I'll let this dry for just a little bit, and then I can go on to the next step. So now that I have the trees back in the garage, I am ready for the next step. They've dried a little while, and I have my sifting stations set up. One color that I use as a base coat is Weeds. It's a nice darker green. I use the fine turf burnt grass, and then I use blended turf green blend. This adds nice texture on the limbs of the trees. In fact, I use this color on any of the trees that I make. You know, sometimes I'll mix them, sometimes just one color, just depends upon what effect I'm after. So next thing I'll do is I'm going to start spraying these down, or one at a time, with hairspray, and then come in and just add a little bit of color to them. I'll see if I can get the camera set up on a tripod here so that this particular step is a little bit more visible. So for this step, I use just a cheap old hairspray. The liquid, not the aerosol, so I can just kind of pump it. I've got a trash can set up over here so that I'm not spraying onto the floor and creating a mess. It's all being contained. I had that experience on the floor over there last year. Don't want to repeat. Process is simple. Take a tree, doesn't make any difference which. Come over to the trash can and just give it a good soak. And then with the ground foam of the color of my choice, I just come in and sprinkle it on. I don't want to go too thick. I want to cover the branches, but I don't want to hide the branches. Because then the next step, once I get this all done, will be to do the static grass. So that's it. There's a tree. It's basically done. Once this dries, I will come in with a brush and I'll take off some of the excess that's on the trunk so that that's not visible. But that's all there is to these. I'm going to do the rest of them, blends in different colors, same color, and get it done and then set up for the next step. So less than 5 minutes since the end of the last segment, I now have 8 trees that are getting close to layout ready. What I will do is I will give everything an overcoat of hairspray. I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, then I'll do that. A few quick squirts on each, let that sit for a little bit longer. Then I can come in with my florist shears and start cutting to give it branch-like appearances. Get rid of the areas that you see that are really rounded. I'll trim off a lot. That stuff will become scenic material for other parts of the layout. But these should be ready to plant possibly yet tonight. And time to go snip, snip, snip. So I will show you the aftermath after I trim all of these. So after coming back in with those little florist shears and doing some trimming, I've got some nice shaped pine trees that look pretty realistic. And I have a nice pile of material that I can use for ground cover that's ready-made and ready to install on the layout. And I've got spots for it. So next step will be to kind of clean this up, and then I will get out my static grass and start squirting them again and sprinkling the static grass on, and get to the final product that will be layout ready. All right, these trees are now layout ready. I have come back in and I have sprayed them down and applied the static grass. And even though again it's kind of hard to see, you can see pine needles on the ends of the branches on these trees now. Gives it a nice full appearance. Definitely looks different than when I first started building them. So I'm going to plant a couple of these, keep a few more for some other areas, and move on to something else. Well, I got all 8 trees on the layout. I didn't keep any of them back. So I've got this scene kind of how I want it for trees. I'm still going to make a little meadow, a little glade right in there. I've got to do that ground cover. Put this one that's got the branches up high right here so you can kind of see that little meadow. Then coming across over here, you know, I added a couple of more trees right here, and then you come into here and you see the gap and you see, yeah, he's still looking that way. I don't know what he's looking at. We'll find out someday maybe. And then coming this way, added a tree right here. I planned on putting one in. This one I think fit that spot. I can still get access there and there if I need to get down that way. And it's not hiding the trestle very much. It's just kind of sitting there. And then I added another tree right here, sort of as a bit of a view block up towards the portal. So I'm happy with that. Added another super tree right in there as well, just to kind of cover that area up. But this is all of the big trees that are going to go on this until I get the rest of it done. I've got some smaller JTT trees. I might add a few of those probably as I'm going down towards the O-scale trestle, and maybe a couple of them up in that little glade I'm going to build. But this is pretty much it for the main trees in this area for this particular piece of the module. Have no idea how many I've got up here. Probably, well, I don't know, I might count them and see, but I'm guessing about 70. So I think this is going to wrap it up for this video. It's long enough. Next one, I'll be doing a little bit more on the scenery, more of the ground cover in the front here and in the back. And I think that I will get started on the sculpt-a-mold down around the trestle. That should be fairly straightforward. I'm going to take this trestle out and I can put the sculpt-a-mold in and build it up that way. But we'll see what mischief I can get into on the next video. So keep having fun on your layouts. Until next time.